Hello, consumers. I'm Altari, the professional gamer, and I don't know what to do with these hands anymore. The alpha has officially ended as of 2 p.m. my local time today, and I wanted to take a couple of minutes to explain when are we getting back into Pax Dei. And all of this is really speculative thoughts on my part. I don't have any inside knowledge or anything like that. This is just me thinking out loud, thinking of the different possibilities. And really, I believe we have a couple of options. And this is going to sound really generic, but I'm going to have an argument for each one of these. And I want to hear down in the comments which one you think is more likely. Those three possibilities are, firstly, we're going to get into an alpha relatively soon in maybe the next month or two, probably around the start of the year. This would be a relative possibility where Mainframe is pretty much going to integrate all of the feedback and changes that they received from this current alpha. We know that they have been hard at work testing the capacity of their servers and also collecting a lot of feedback over building and crafting and exploration. So it's entirely possible that they are going to integrate that over the next month or two and then send us back out into the world to get more feedback. This is probably one of the least likely options, as that would pretty much result in Mainframe working throughout the holidays, which hopefully is not the case. I want them to enjoy their families as much as we all will. But the next option for when we are going to get into the next Pax Dei Alpha, and the one that I personally believe is going to be a little bit more likely, is around the same time that they have the first iteration of their combat system in-game and ready to test. Now, for this particular circumstance to play out, they definitely need to have already started working on their combat system. This, I think, is something that is kind of more likely, as they've already given us an AMA on what they expect combat to be like. And even in the alpha, we saw a couple of skills like block, dodge, as well as one-handed and multi-handed weapons. So they have the skills in game and the framework is already there. It's just yet to be seen how much progress they've actually made on both the network side of things to make sure that the combat is responsive and snappy, as well as the actual feel of combat. We know that that was something that was very lacking in the most recent alpha, so this is possibly just a little bit of wishful thinking as well, but by the time we get into the next alpha, hopefully that means we will also have this combat system implemented so we can start giving them some more useful feedback on one of the systems that is probably, for most of us, the most important system that's going to exist in game. That doesn't mean that they're not going to be working on a whole lot of other systems, as well as a whole lot of other maps. We know that we already have 4 maps, but just by looking at the map of Innis Gallia and all of the surrounding maps in the last alpha, we know that there are at least going to be 16 additional maps that are connected to the ones that are in the Gallia region, and we also know that there's at least 3 other major regions in the game. So there's a lot of maps that they're going to need to start generating, and I have a feeling that that's only going to start picking up and ramping up as the artists become more familiar with their map generation system. So hopefully we're going to be getting some combat as well as some new maps. I think that the timeline for that might be in the next 6 to 8 months, and we'll definitely be able to see something close to the summer start, and maybe a little bit after they get back from their summer break like they had this year. So around possibly July. The third and final option that we might have for getting back into Pax Dei, and possibly the most conservative of our three options is they're going to wait until they're ready for an early access. That could be anywhere from a year to a year and a half away, and this would basically mean that the next time that the community at large is going to get access into the alpha or the beta or the early access, whatever it's going to be called, is after a significant portion of the content in the game has either been developed. There's a lot more maps, there's a lot more systems, they have a fully integrated, at least version 1 of their knowledge system, of their combat system. Magic is completely fleshed out. Crafting is probably going to go through an entire revamp, especially after all of the feedback that we've given from this first alpha. And they're going to compile all of that together, and it is going to be summed up in a early access launch, either on Steam or their own individual platform. This might be free to access. It might be something that requires us to actually purchase the game, which at this point, Mainframe, please take my money. I would love to give you some money so that you can continue working on this project. But I also respect the fact that you haven't asked for anything yet, given how young your product is. And like I said, I feel like this is the most conservative option, maybe a year to a year and a half before we really get back in. But I think that also allows for a couple of spot tests to occur throughout the next couple of months. Now, this would be a lot more selective and probably something that's going to be under an NDA, so we wouldn't even be able to know that this kind of thing is happening unless you happen to be invited into one of those tests. That being said, we have the very soon option in the next month to 2 months. Then we have a kind of moderate and probably most likely scenario of in the next 6 to 8 months, after the combat system and a couple more of the integral systems for Pax Dei have been put together and are at least in a initial state of iteration. And then the more conservative of it's over a year away, and when it comes back into our hands, it's going to be certainly a more finished product, and potentially even one that Mainframe is going to sell for the first time, because up until now we haven't really had to pay anything to play their work in progress game. Let me know what of these you think is closer to reality. Maybe we can come back at a later time once we get into the alpha, and who knows, maybe we're actually going to be getting another alpha right at the very start of the year. That would be incredible as well. And ultimately, what I hope is that Mainframe continues to take their time, listen to our feedback, and implement their version of their dream MMO sandbox social survival game. And we're just here along for the ride. I have full trust in their ability. They've done such a great job in this current alpha that really, if I had any doubts before, they're not really there now. And they've proven not only can they produce a very fun game with almost nothing to do yet, but they've also shown how responsive they are with all of the bugs and making corrections to their game as it was launched into an alpha. So altogether, A+ for Mainframe, and I'm really hoping that we can get access to an alpha within the next 6 to 8 months is probably my safest bet. But as always, if you enjoy this content, don't forget to subscribe and like if you're down there already. Share this video with any of your friends who are interested in Pax Dei, and we will be back in the next video to be covering all of that juicy Pax Dei content that we still have to digest from the alpha. Until next video, I'm Altari, the Professional Gamer.